99.9 SM Spiritual Medium, Sacred Garden Culture Network. Welcome to another royal feast of divine food for thought and reasoning in action with High Priest Kwatamani.
We sing this song straight, no change.
Up your mighty race.
Addressing the unified soul of the human race.
I've been thinking while the days go by, when the people them open their minds. How long will it take for them all to see we are one ancestral family tree?
Greetings. In the most supreme spirit of love, the I and I send a very special greetings to all those first Genesis souls selectively chose to consume of the fruits of the tree of life that grows naturally and innate within Mother Earth's sacred garden culture estate. Yeah, this story is to give glory to those sacred ancestral incarnating and reincarnating souls who rejected the codes of buying and selling souls, rather seeking to reclaim their divine socioeconomic family community fame. Supreme thanks, praise, and appreciation to all those first Genesis souls who rose against all odds, rejecting the self-deified foes who front fake and facade. Yeah, dear Lord knows these lost souls carrying codes deposed by those who ripped, stripped, raped, enslaved, and stole with a primary goal: domination, rule, and control under the facade of that hunting, herding, blood-spilling war god. And so, in the spirit of giving supreme thanks, praise, and appreciation to those sacred souls who have stood for whole life resurrection against all odds,
We give thanks and praise.
Different shades and tones, my people, division is all we've ever known. Sun children come home to the black hole nest where the seeds were sown. Detoxing and purging to heal. Come along now while the deal is real. Well, I'ma be bold and reclaim everything that they ever stole.
those incarnated and reincarnated souls who refuse to sell out their soul, rather seeking to reclaim all that was stole, bought, and sold, regardless of who, why, where, or when, regardless of the bringer of the sin, be they friend, foe, or kin, regardless of color of skin.
It's not about the color of one's skin, but rather the state of consciousness one lives within. This quote by Macaulay underlines his intentions, which would eventually become the bedrock of all British colonial strategy. It was spoken at the British Parliament on February 2nd, 1835. Quote, "We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect." End of quote. Page 222, Banu Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani.
Much appreciation to those sacred ancestral incarnated and reincarnated souls who refuse to be used or abused by that opposing nature of energy that is amused, watching one sink into low-down, dirty blues. If you feel that you may be one of the sacred sons and daughters here upon this earth to perpetuate green earth solar conscious energy, take time, look, listen, learn, and discern, and just maybe you will see who you truly be.
Do you know who you truly be? Mindset determines one's destiny. Do you know who you truly be?
Mindset determines one's destiny.
One's destiny. Time to leave the self-defined mind far behind. Far behind. Align with the soul divine.
Align with the soul. With the soul.
Let's take time and get down to the real nitty-gritty, as it would have been said back in the day of the I and I. The real nitty-gritty actually begins with the divine union of masculine and feminine energy. Now, we know full well that there is a union of masculine and feminine energy outside of divine order. We're going to take time and talk about what is necessary to perpetuate the divine union of masculine and feminine energy, the root, foundation, and birth of holistic living resurrection. Make no mistake about it. We are in a crisis situation where holistic living resurrection is an absolute necessity. The resurrection of our sacred ancestral soul, the resurrection of divine socioeconomic family community order, the resurrection of a green earth solar conscious reality. Mother Earth is actually grown sick, literally, and tired physically of dealing with a nature diametrically opposed to her sacred ancestral state of being. Mother Nature is a green earth solar conscious reality. Therefore, the children of the sun must find an avenue to connect with his and or her green earth solar conscious reality, a reflection of his and or her mother, Mother Earth.
Deep in the heart, she seems to be somebody's special treasure.
More than a temporary pleasure.
The gentle strength of peace, sensitivity.
Make her feel secure in love that's will endure. So desire.
If we can get to comprehend this, it will make it very easy for us to at least get to a parallel of thought and reasoning and actions where we can communicate. Communications is a very serious issue because there are so many master programs that has been encoded in the mind of lost and astray children of the sun, causing them to have very serious mental, physical, and spiritual identity crises. Those crises that are causing conflict, confusion, and chaos to be a daily reality. Those kinds of situations and circumstances that actually interrupt and interfere with the basic element of motherhood, fatherhood, birthing an offspring, educating, and taking that offspring to the next phase of becoming a wholesome and healthy parent. The reality is, man, he and she has lost their natural and innate identity. Basically, with their son children, those of the garden culture presence, which actually is the identification of the root, foundation, and base of who we be as humanity. Children of the sun, holistic living reality, higher peace consciousness as a part and parcel of our existence. Why? Because in our heart and soul, we love, want, need, and desire a higher peace conscious relationship with each other. Conflict, confusion, and chaos was bred in an environment of conflict, confusion, and chaos, led by a hunting, herding, warring, tribal consciousness. Hunting, herding, raping, stealing, killing, and to the victor goes the spoils. To the victor went the booty. And the result was a chaotic consciousness that produced a chaotic culture that totally opposed our sacred ancestral mother, Earth, and all living things thereof. In fact, a consciousness diametrically opposed to the holistic living essence of humanity. You see, the first law is that man, he and she, is a product of his and or her environment. And as a product of an environment, what must be comprehended is one will simply be a mental, physical, and spiritual reflection of that environment, a product of that environment. So, if somehow there's an environment, let's say we're talking about a garden culture environment, we're talking about a fertile crescent reality.
tree. Sacred garden, symphony. Sacred garden, symphony.
We're talking about that Kemet Nile River Valley garden culture community. We're talking about a space and place where planting and harvesting and tilling is a reality. A place where each one teach one and each one learn from what is taught by the other one. Certain things will become basic principles. Eldership will become very necessary. Teachers will become important if the teacher had learned from the teacher who taught and learned from those who came before. Holistic living reality expressed. Now, what has occurred is something entirely different. What has occurred is man, he, and she has lost their personal identity as a he and or she. And I'm talking about identity based on natural innate order. That natural and innate order has nothing to do with anything except what is manhood? What is womanhood?
Mama said,
Don't be misled by romantic fantasies. You've been fed. Seek holistic living way of life instead. Sisterhood, brotherhood, family, community.
feeding, feeding, breeding, unity, honor and respect.
Mama said this what we naturally select.
If we begin to reason, what becomes clear is the mother spirit is the essential ingredient necessary to perpetuate a consciousness into the next generation. Therefore, she will breed, seed, and feed attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs into the next generation naturally and innately as a mother spirit. The mother spirit is the affectionate nurturer. So, if she is groomed and conditioned by a culture opposed to her instinctual, natural, and innate state of being, and to then identify, assimilate, integrate, and adopt the ways and means of a culture diametrically opposed to her natural and innate order as a child of the sun, a garden culture being, then that particular she will take that as a reality and will perpetuate that into that next generation. Once that is her reality, the first part of the warlord's deed has been done. That's right. It will become virtually impossible for a green earth solar conscious Messiah to be born from that she until or unless a massive level and degree of detoxing and purging to heal occurs. She will breathe her energy of thought by her expressions to the child as a little baby, and she will, in fact, be the key to who that child will grow to be. Now, here's the deal. Many times within a monotheistic warlord culture, the male says he is the atom, a personal creation above and beyond the need for the feminine she, created in the image of the almighty and omnipotent monotheistic God, a jealous God, and that there should be no one before he. Therefore, the feminine energy must be reduced to her least common denominator. She must be looked upon as an inferior trait of humanity. The reality is, and I have said this over and over again, if she is of inferiority, then whatever she breeds, seed, and feed will be of a lower and lesser state of inferiority. That's a reality. That is a holistic living reality. This is why, at this point in time upon Mother Earth, we are suffering a very serious crisis. A crisis that actually threatens the existence of Mother Earth, humanity, and all living things thereof. In case you don't know it, because you're in a little corner somewhere, or didn't realize what is going on, the Earth is heating up. The climate changing, shifting vibrations are actually unpredictable. And the worst is yet to come. Until or unless we take the action to do something about it. That's right. We must reintroduce, resurrect the sacred ancestral order of our green earth solar conscious reality, that sacred garden culture from which we come as divine children of the sun. If we do not, we are taking a turn into that reflection, documented well within the ancient Kemetic pyramid text that tells us about the birth of that second-born son, that second Genesis son, he who ripped and tore his mother's womb, bursting out of her side, coming too soon. A kind and type of masculinity that actually perpetuated the warlord syndrome, the syndrome of self-deified individualism, where domination, control, and rule conquers over all things. It is far more important to that state of masculinity as to how much he can gain, how much wealth he can attain, by what means available, and therefore creating a state of reasoning where whoever has the swiftest ability to kill, maim, conquer, and destroy is the he who gains the booty and the spoils of war. See, we're talking about a warlord state of masculinity, a state of masculinity diametrically opposed to the Asarian state of masculinity. We need to take a few moments and talk about that.
Asar, green god of the black land. I love to call him name. Asar, green god of the black land. He was called Asar, glorified near and far. Radiant, firstborn son of she, anointed by the essence of her femininity. Green god of the black land, a set and never had, always had a plan.
Within the Asarian nature of masculinity, that is to say, within the nature of higher peace conscious masculinity, what is clearly comprehended is that the feminine is the nurturing, affectionate being that gives birth to both he and she. And as such, it is clear she bears the burden of carrying a child for 9 months in her womb and for feeding and nurturing that child thereafter, and also the burden of working to make sure that the home environment is hygienically in place. This does not reduce her sense of responsibility within the two parts of one wholeness, but rather enhances her prominence as essential to the divine union of masculine and feminine energy. And he clearly not looking down upon his own being because he don't have a womb or he's not the carrier of that birth, but rather to recognize that a greater sense of responsibility within the masculine he is to look over the family community order, take care of those particular attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs that safeguard, secure, and perpetuate the divine order, that he carry a great role as the masculine he, and that she carries a great role as the feminine she. We're talking about two parts to one whole, having two different elements of responsibility to bring that oneness, that divine oneness, that wholeness into fruition. And this is missing within the monotheistic macho male syndrome, which is about being the top dog, dominating, controlling, ruling, conquest. I came, I saw, I conquered. Then Mr. Came, saw, conquered, moved on to another war zone. The disconnection from the soul-to-soul relationship is so evident. It is, quote, self-evident. So we're in a situation now where to the victor goes the spoils, and Mother Earth is looked upon as the spoils. And the victor is the self-deified individual. And that becomes the greatest challenge that humanity has faced. We're talking about a lower and lesser state of masculinity, worshiping a lower and lesser state of conscious reasoning, and perpetuating a lower and lesser state of life as a resort for a masculine he, born, bred, spoon-fed, off of what Mr. Kane saw, conquered, did, and said to the women and the children after taking that Nazi dread's head. Enough said. Now, as for the sacred few who are able to follow this thread, one of the most difficult tasks is to restore the basic infrastructure of divine social, economic, family, community order. This makes it an absolute necessity for the masculine he to reunify, to bond into a movement that will give guidance and protection to that sacred order of family community. First and foremost, the masculine he would need to learn to deal with each other, brother to brother, rather than flipping, dipping, ego tripping, one against the other. And if you want to see him get vexed, show him the social, economic, political, and religious ways and means that he has been cursed, condemned, and hexed. This is real, no joke. And we are not here to ego stroke. We're talking attitudes, values, and behaviors that are interrupting with whole life resurrection of a masculine he devoted to providing divine guidance and protection to the women and the children of a community. Yeah, he will become outspoken, unaware that he has been broken from ancestral eldership, guidance, and protection. His soul-to-soul connection with she, beyond the sexuality connection made simply to satisfy his erection. She, the first teacher, unaware that it's an absolute necessity that he reach her, or that Babylon system will beat you in the womb, humanity's first classroom, where she will breed divine order or self-deified, individualized doom. No, life is not a movie where the strip is laid out to be played out in a predetermined destiny. You see, the key to this equation is determined by one's energy persuasion. In brief, there is no relief that prevents one from being accountable for one's attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs, and how those thoughts, reasons, and actions has affected others. Remember, what you put in is what comes out, and that's what will come back to you again when you least wish, want, desire, or expect it to. Karma. We're talking about the nature of energy one consumes, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Divine order or toxic reality. Supreme truth or self-deified fallacy. One encoded to empower the soul. The other hell-bent on mind control, where the ego-driven field of the self-asserted will seek to seal the deal, taking its toll as it steal or corrode the soul. If we are unable to make that whole life connection, then destruction is imminent. But do not misinterpret the power of the soul.
Rise up, children. It's time to shake the devil out your soul. Rise up, children. Rise up.
We must cease and desist to continue to perpetuate that warlord breeding concept. That concept where the male gets his pleasure and move on like a predator. We must comprehend that the feminine she has a body temple to serve the soul-to-soul essence of who we be. And the masculine he has a body temple to serve the soul-to-soul essence of who we be. Therefore, the ability to go forward and multiply divine social, economic, family, community order has every possibility of becoming a holistic living reality, two parts to one whole. Divine social, economic, family, community order, masculine and feminine energy. And then the sacred ancestral resurrection story will be told. Man, he and she can no longer be governed by such concepts as eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Every man for himself and God for us all. You only go around once, so you might as well do what you want to do. Live for today and let tomorrow take care of itself. You see, the reality is, man, he and she must submit to the principles, morals, and values of celibacy. We must be about selective matehood relationships. There must be an understanding that the entire process of our living existence has to be devoted to selective reading of a consciousness that has the ability to resurrect a greater sense of green earth solar conscious reality. We must be very selective in that breeding process. We must look for the greatest sense of health and well-being within that persona, and we must do everything possible to stay out of those relationships where hurt and harm has been encoded into the being, until or unless the being has went through a total process, a holistic living process of detox, purging, and healing. This is something that we must reason with. We're talking nitty gritty. What we must do is to recognize that the male produces semen and sperm, and he's accountable for that semen and sperm. And as such, he needs to place that semen and that sperm inside of a possibility where life can manifest and love supreme based upon the nature of who we be as soul-to-soul beings will be honored. He has the divine, natural, and innate duty, obligation, responsibility to provide divine guidance and protection over the women and the children. Therefore, he should not even be considering breeding, seeding any kind of offspring unless he is ready, willing, and able to assume the responsibility for what he has produced. And that is essential to his own presence as a soul-to-soul being. He's preparing a pathway for future reincarnations.
What kind of man is this that walks like a naga? What kind of man is this that talks like a naga?
Children of the sun. Nagas, children of the sun. Nagas, children of the sun.
It must be
Nagas, children of the sun. Nagas, children of the sun. Nagas,
The feminine must comprehend that simply by having the womb of life, she has a responsibility to keep her legs closed until she has some kind of communal nature and oversight entity that will be able to assist her in selective processes, because she do not have the ability, especially within a warlord culture, a culture that perpetuates a sense of deception. Anything goes within a warlord culture, and we know that. So therefore, if he and she truly and sincerely have the desire to devote his and her whole life energy to green earth solar conscious resurrection, there is no ands, if, and buts about it. Both he and she need to be divinely guided, divinely protected, given divine nurturing affection within a divine social, economic, family, community order where there are elders looking over things, being focused on making sure that she and he stay within the principles of masculine and feminine energy, whole life responsibility.
Nagas, children of the sun, rise up. Children of the sun,
rise up and behold.
rise.
Shake the devil out your soul.
Children of the sun.
And if we are sincere, we must begin to comprehend that each and every relationship that we have must be under this kind of type of scrutiny. The masculine he has to surrender to the idea of maintaining celibacy until a sanctioned relationship manifests. If he has any circumstances anything that happens to he, there is a holistic living community ready, willing, and able to take care of those offspring and generations, to take care of she, and to make sure that wholesome health and well-being is maintained. And as for she has to cease and desist from making those mistakes about materialism. She has to realize that her sacred body temple is far more important than any kind of physical, materialistic object. And therefore, she must submit to maintaining celibacy, virginity, until a sanctioned relationship has manifested. We're talking about maturity into a state where a wholesome and healthy relationship can manifest that will add to, produce green earth solar conscious offsprings, souls within a soul-to-soul relationship, given every possibility of producing a pathway to a greater sojourn for both he and she.
Absolute
truth.
Rise up, Naga Spirit.
99.9 SM Spiritual Medium, Sacred Garden Culture Network. The best is yet to come. Stay tuned to the prophetic, comedic, genetic, aesthetic podcast series with High Priest Kwatamani.